serious at all. I don't think that any Muslim or a Christian is that serious at all. I don't think so.
No, of course not. I'm gonna bring Remy up as well. No, they're not even slightly. If they were practicing their religion, they still be sacrificed. They still be practicing the high holy days, following all the Ten Commandments and all the other 613 commandments, but they don't. So Remy,
Hello,
how old are you?
I'm 26.
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Are you a believer?
Yeah, I'm a believer.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm a Muslim specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the channel is called Deconstructing Christianity. You're welcome to the show anyway. Now, I will openly admit I do not know as much about Islam as I know about Christianity. I only studied the Quran for about 7 or 8 months back in 1990.
hmm
So I certainly will never claim that I know the Quran as well as I
Yeah,
know
okay.
the Bible.
Yeah, it's okay, it's fine. But then, there's a big overlap between us and the Christians, especially
Mhm.
with the first sets of prophets, whether it's like Moses, Abraham, so on and so forth.
Exactly. So, which I find interesting. So there's a when I had my cigar lounge in Atlanta, one of the gentlemen who used to come there. His father is the guy who pretty much established Islam and the mosque in Atlanta, all the mosques in Atlanta. So he was very well versed in the history and the Quran itself.
Yeah.
Now, I asked him one time, and I want to see what your response is. I remember asking him. It's a two-part question. Okay, the I asked him what is the stance of slavery in the Quran, and what he explained to me is that even though the Quran it doesn't want you to have slaves, but you can have slaves, but then you're supposed to make it where over your lifetime you're supposed to try to help your slave to gain their freedom that you're
Yeah.
on.
Like he's very correct in that we are commanded at least that to free slaves is a righteous act, right?
Right?
So that's how we interact with it, because owning slaves on its own, that's a thing that already exists among human beings, right?
Mhm.
God did not create slaves, humans did, right?
Okay, so then explain to me, and this is not the second part of the question that I asked him that I'm going to ask you, but this is just an add on to what we're talking about right now.
Sure.
So, how do you rectify the 1,200 years of the trans Sahara slave trade?
I mean, first of all, it's you know obviously it's 1200 years or 1500 years, right? And
You can say more because, like in Libya, it's still going on.
yeah,
So,
like
how
clearly
would you
holding people in
rectify?
bondage is wrong, right? We can acknowledge that, right?
Hmm.
And as Muslims, like, our duty is, especially because pretty much everybody in the Sahara today is mostly Muslim, so the people who are being victimized today are also Muslim. So this is a huge contradiction.
They still going down and grabbing people on the other side of Sahara, the Africans, the darker African, I have to say, because they all
Yeah,
Africans. But the sub-Saharan African was the primary target for the trans-Saharan slave trade. Uh,
but
going.
there's more nuance to it, right? Because you have kingdoms like Mali, right, who are doing these things, who are like the hub of the Saharan trade system,
Right.
right? But then they are the ones who are capturing people, whether it's Wolof people, whether it's Yorubas, who on so on. Like, they're just capturing everybody they can,
Hmm.
and then they ship them off to like the north of Africa, Arabia, so on and so forth.
Right. So how? So if I'm a Muslim, I'm living in Egypt. Here comes the Mali caravan with some slaves. How do I justify buying them as slaves. I know that as Amenhotep, he was saying that the Quran condones slavery, and I also knew that Muhammad had slaves himself.
Yeah,
So,
he had slaves, but he freed them all, right? Because
so is that my justification?
he had a conversion moment, right? Because for most of his life, right, for like 42 years, he wasn't a
Mhm.
Muslim, right?
Right.
But when he received revelation, right, that's when he, also repented of like anything he did before,
Now,
right?
did he free the slave immediately, or was it over time? Was it in his will? Like, how did he free the slave?
Like Ziyad, like his personal household one, he freed him like the month he got revelation, right?
Mhm. I
And
mean,
then
I wouldn't
for
be
the
able
rest
to.
of his life, like by the point where he passed away, he didn't have any.
All right. So these other caliphates and other people who maintained slaves for longer periods of time, and I know some slaves worked their way into freedom by being in the military
Yeah.
uh, and things of that nature. How did they justify having slaves? Period.
I mean, I can't read people's minds, but then like, let's say for example with the Ottomans, right? For them, it's how they dealt with like prisoners of war, right? Because we're talking about a situation where they don't have established prisons or whatever. So instead of like taking people out and like, you know, executing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You'd rather say, okay, hold on, like you're going to work for us for X amount of time, or like
Okay, prisoner of war. I can see what you're saying in that one, but with the Trans-Sahara was not prisoners of war. That was
no,
business.
no, okay, okay. Even across the Sahara, right? Like most, enslaved people came from like, raids and like warring between these groups.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I would grant you that. But so I think we're pretty much there on that one.
Yeah.
So here's the second part of the question that I asked him. Uh, Moses is one of your prophets, right?
Prophecy. Yeah.
So so the book of Exodus, how the books of Exodus and the book of Leviticus is that part of your belief, your understanding, your teachings?
Okay. We believe in the Torah, right? The first five books of Moses, like that were revealed to him, and
Mhm.
the commandments. But like, there's a big caveat to that, is that what modern, let's say, religions have, like whether it's you know what you see in a synagogue today, what you see in like the Septuagint, we believe that to have been altered and changed over time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so the in Leviticus, where in Leviticus 25, verse 44 through 46, where it
Hmm.
says, "The foreigners you may buy your male and female slaves and own them as property and pass them down to your sons."
Hmm.
Is that something that Islam believes has been changed, or is that original text?
Okay, because we do have an Exodus narrative within the Quran. It's the second chapter, Al-Baqarah, right?
Mhm.
The second chapter of the Quran goes over like Moses's life and like him leading the people that
Mhm.
in the desert. And largely the Quran doesn't mention you know this happening, like giving them permission to enslave other people like that.
So the
But
Quran doesn't
but
have.
also, as just as a factor of history, yes, did the Hebrews, the Judeans, the Israelites hold slaves? Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and it was condoned by the God of the Torah.
Hmm.
And but so you don't. So it was condoned by the God of the Torah, to which Islam believes that the God of the Torah is the God of the Quran, right?
Yeah. The God of the Torah, the God of the Gospels, the God of
So
Abraham.
with the Quran being a revelation that supposedly came to Muhammad by Gabriel, uh, what was it, like 500 CE?
610 about there.
610?
Yeah.
Uh, so in 610. But the Septuagint information you think was changing of the Torah.
hmm Yeah,
So
because
where did
okay,
you get your original writings for the Exodus story or the Torah in itself?
I mean that's why the revelation by the angels is that much more important, right?
Mhm. Okay, so
Because
the parts of the Torah that y'all stand on is the part that was revealed to Muhammad during
the
that.
parts that are corroborated, right? Because it's not that it's completely wrong, right? The Ten Commandments, we agree on those, right? Like the prescription against eating pork, we're 100% with them on that, right?
So and so basically it picks and chooses what parts of the Torah that is accepted.
I mean, even among like, Jewish communities, Samaritans, and like all these groups, right? There's disputes about like, okay, which of the 613 mitzvah are actually valid, and then there's whole discussions in the Talmud and stuff, right?
Hmm.
So what we're saying is that, okay, these are the clarified points, these are the clarified commandments, right? And there's other rulings, right? Because there's other judgments that were made by Aaron, by Joshua, by so on and so forth along the line. Do those also count as revelations? Yeah, that's where the debate is.
I'm with you, but Leviticus 25 should not be debatable because it starts out with the Lord said to Moses to tell the people this. So this is supposedly the commandments of the God of the Exodus,
Yep.
telling Moses what to tell the people. So I don't see how that's debatable when it's supposed to be this God telling them.
Yeah, but then at least I'm going on what we have, right? So what we have is that you know as Exodus happened, the like Moses got like the tablets, he got you know all sorts of like revelations, and he was given commands, he was told this and this and this and that to do, right? But
Right.
at least within the Quran, right, there's never a section where it says, okay, you must enslave these people, right?
Okay.
And the opposite is that freeing people is good, right? That's what appears, that giving to charity is good, like resting is good, doing this is good, you know.
No, yeah, and those are some good things.
Yeah.
You know, I will I have always said that there are certain things about every religion that have some good stuff in it. Uh,
Mhm.
but I just if the to me the bad outweighs the good, so there's no need for me to have it at all. Right. And it kind of like the personality of these gods are all over the place as well. But what I guess what I'm trying to understand is how you skip out since you're supposed to accept the Torah. How you skip out on some of these finer points within the Torah where the God is saying to do these things. That and then it's kind of like the Ten Commandments. Which Ten Commandments are you following? The first 10, or are you following the second 10?
I mean, like, let's say, for example, the first 10, you should not have any gods except, God, right? Thou shalt not unalive people, thou shalt not, make graven images. Those ones are undisputable because they're found in both the Quran and the Torah, right?
Right. Okay. What about the one like when Moses, he broke them, then he went back up, then he came back down, he had some more, and then some of them were similar, but then others was like, don't boil your baby cow in your mother's milk.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I get what you're talking about. Like,
I mean,
let's say,
I don't mean that to be sound rude, but it's just a lot of Christians don't even realize that. A lot of people who read the Old Testament don't realize that it says that.
yeah, because like that's an incident that happens in. I think it was like Exodus 24, because I've read the book, like a Hebrew Bible a while back.
Hmm.
So I do know that is what's described there. But then as what we receive, how we receive it in the Quran, it's that, we're told that, okay, through Moses' story, right, that Moses has been told that you guys should not have any other gods. And then we have a scene where that, these children of Israel start making like a golden calf to worship,
Hmm.
right? And then they're reprimanded, and then they're told, do you not remember the law? X, Y, Z happened in the law, right? Don't make idols.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And he comes down and kills 3,000 people and then go back up the mountain. And that's when he destroys the first 10 tablets, the first tablets. So I'm with you. It's okay. So I got my understanding. So my understanding is that the in the Quran, it doesn't necessarily you don't necessarily follow everything that's in the Torah, just what is corroborated within the Quran of the
Yeah.
Torah. All right. So you can't say that y'all follow the Torah then.
Because to us, the revelation, like what was revealed to Moses, and then what's corroborated, that's what we call Torah, right?
Okay. So the Torah is not actually what y'all call the Torah is not actually the Torah then.
No, we're not talking about like the book that you see,
Yeah.
like, or like the scrolls, right? We're talking about the revelation, right?
So it's the
It's the
parts.
same way, like,
But what you're saying though. It's
yeah,
the parts of the Torah that corroborate what's in the Quran is the only parts that you'll accept.
of course, right? Like, I mean, that this is what makes us a distinct religion, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there you have to have distinctions in order to be a different religion, and that would make it different. But
Yeah.
I see, I would have a problem, and then maybe this was one of my thoughts when I studied Islam back in 1990. Is that I can see that being one of my problems. I don't remember every aspect of why I was like, nah, okay, the Quran's not for me either. But I can see if I was saying like, wait, it's picking and choosing what parts of the Torah that it's going to agree with simply based on what it says. And with it coming, 1,000 years after the Torah was beginning to be written, that's no different. Why should I trust that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, right? But then to us, right, there's been one message throughout time, right? From Abraham's time, even Adam's time, right? Going forward. There's been attempts to like write it down, turn it into a formalized practice, right? But then people have gone astray
What's the one
each
message?
time. Right? The one message is that there's only one God, and He would prefer that, we do righteous things, right?
Okay, but now you have to define righteous because righteous in the Old Testament is different than righteousness in the New Testament. Well,
Mhm.
let me rephrase that. Righteousness in the Old Testament is different from some of the righteousness in the Old Testament and definitely the righteousness of the Paulinian New Testament. Oh, man,
I mean, we don't take Paul at all, right?
I still said it wrong. Righteousness in the Old Testament is somewhat different and somewhat the same as Jesus' New Testament, but very different from Paul's New Testament. So, what would be righteousness in Islam then?
Righteousness, first of all, it's like the worship of God, right? There's only one God, right? And second to that is like, simple things. Honor your parents, you know, like do not unalive people without cause, right? Like self-defense is fine because it's you or them, right? But then that you shall not like unalive people, right?
Hmm. What about
Uh,
taxing non-Muslims?
I mean, like we're within the Quran, we're commanded like we should not fight people unless they're fighting us, right? So
Yeah.
if they're doing their thing, they're leaving us alone, we're leaving them alone, that's fine.
No, I was talking about taxes. Like, if I remember correctly, there's a part of the Quran that says that you don't tax, no usury towards other Muslims,
Almost.
but
Yeah, because okay, you
non-Muslims
have two people who agree on something, right? I mean, we can't take usury at all from anybody, right?
I could be
And
wrong, but I distinctly remember where it was you can tax foreigners.
okay, are you saying tax or like,
Like
charge
not
interest?
tax. Like this is a
Because
dollar.
if you're talking about the
Here's the sales
protection
tax.
tax, the jizya, right?
Huh?
If you're talking about the protection tax that, for let's say if Christians live in a, Muslim society, they pay a tax, right?
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about, then that exists. But if you're talking about interest, let's say on a loan, right? You loan me $1,000, right?
Now I'm
And
talking
then I
about,
have to pay you like 100 on that.
yeah, I understand usury. Now I'm talking about taxes. Like I
I
distinctly remember either reading or being taught that under the Quran that you can levy heavy taxes on non-Muslims in order for them to, that you can just tax the shit out of them. And then once they
I
get
mean,
their
no, it's comparable to no, it's comparable to like the religious tax that Muslims have to pay, right? Let's say, for example, like Muslims pay something like 5%, towards the community. It's called zakat,
Mhm.
right? And then I a non-Muslim would also have to pay that, right? But then it's not for religious reasons, it's for like protection reasons.
They have to pay extra tax for protection reason.
Yeah.
Protection
So
from
they like think about like social security. Like so for all of us to have like, because if a Christian is, let's say for example, a homeless, right? It's still on the Muslims in that society to take care of that person,
hmm
regardless.
So they
So
have
it's
to
like a
pay
social
extra
security
tax for
thing.
them to get Social Security, but
Yeah,
Muslims.
everybody. Okay, from our perspective, everybody, regardless of how good or bad or whatever they are, they have to get like some form of like social security,
hmm
right? Especially orphans and widows.
Okay, but okay. What is the purpose of the extra tax on the non-Muslim? You said it's for protection. I said
Yeah,
protection from
protection.
whom? So it's not a
I
protection from an individual or a group of people. It's protection for Social Security type for like old age.
Yeah, it's like because the money's going to be distributed, to like feed people and like clothe or do.
But the Muslim doesn't have to pay that extra tax, but
No,
still
no,
get the same benefit.
no. Like all Muslims have to pay 5%, right?
Okay, but there's an extra tax on non-Muslims. You said that's for protection.
No, no. Everybody in society has to pay something, right? The
Everybody,
Muslims, yeah, everybody has to pay something.
but is there an extra tax that non-Muslims have to pay? And
So,
you said,
on
and you said,
yeah, on this, allow me just prompt you to read. I'm speaking to you, deconstructing. I'm speaking to you specifically. I just want you to Google right now. This is from the Quran, 9 verse 29. Just Google that right now. 9 verse 29. 9 verse 29. That is chapter 9 verse 29. Just Google it for me right now.
let's see. For those who do not believe in Allah and the last day, nor comply with what Allah and His Messenger have forbidden, nor embrace the religion of truth from among those who were given the scripture, until they pay the tax, willingly submit, fully humbled.
Mhm.
So let me read that again because I read that kind of choppy. For those who do not believe in Allah and the last day, nor comply with Allah and His Messenger have forbidden, nor embrace the religion of truth from among those who were given until they pay the tax willingly and submitting, fully humbled. So what does that mean? That
Yeah,
sounds
generally,
like an extra
yeah,
tax.
generally it means that. yeah, they're supposed to pay the tax, and they're supposed to be humble, and they're supposed to submit. Submit is very key there. And I think that Rahim here, he's my friend. We have debated this before. He's one of my guys, and I think he came here because the FYP sent him here because of me. And I think he's just selling you the benign side of Islam. He's failing to recognize that Islam describes or prescribes a lot of violence towards non-believers and towards apostates, which is extremely real, but they do have cognitive dissonance in order to protect this. And on this particular verse, we can clearly see that if you're not a believer, I don't know if you're a believer or not, but on this particular verse, if you're not a believer, you're supposed to pay the tax, and you're equally supposed to submit and be humble. If not, they are supposed to fight you. They are supposed to fight you, like it states, fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last day. That is to mean fight those who don't believe in Allah till the last day.
No, no, the last day is Judgment Day.
Yeah,
And this
but you should fight them till that day.
no, not till that day and the last day, right? Those people who don't believe in God and Judgment Day.
Yeah, but you should fight them. The prompt here is you should fight them. That is very clear. And if they pay tax, and if they submit, and if they are humbled, then you should not fight them, right?
Yeah.
So we have to understand that the tax they are being put on, and why they should submit and why they should be humble is because they are non-believers. We should be clear.
Yeah. And
Like I said, but still, like
let me
those
just
people
add,
within
Remy.
those
Go
people
ahead.
within like yeah, sorry.
Now go ahead, Remy. Go ahead. I'll ask you this after you respond to him.
Yeah. So I'm gonna respond to him. Like I'm just trying to say, like in terms of like if tax evasion, right? Even for Muslims, right? We have like controls for that. We say that hey, you can't skimp out on zakat. You cannot literally not pay your dues to society, right? So even for Muslims, you have to pay your taxes, right? Or else.
Right. So just on a quick little research beyond that, so I can understand it, because sometimes it says stuff, but you got to break it down a little bit more. And basically, what the footnotes are saying is that all people under Islamic rule had to pay the zakat, which
Yeah,
is
zakat.
2.5% of their savings. But it says, and non-Muslims were required to pay a word that I cannot pronounce.
Jizya.
Yeah, that taxes for protection from foreign enemies. So that's the who that I was asking. Who are you paying these taxes for? The exact tax. So it has nothing to do with like a Social Security. You're paying extra tax in order for the Muslims that you are living under to make sure that they defend you against foreign enemies. And it says that if they found that the Muslim rulers didn't defend the non-Muslims in their region, then the tax will be refunded back to them. So
Yeah.
just living under Islamic rule, even though everybody is supposed to be protected, the non-Muslim has to pay extra money for that protection. That seems a little cheating. That doesn't seem fair. You understand what I'm saying? That's like I haven't paid taxes in America since 1991, simply because I
Oh,
just
should you be saying that? I don't know if the IRS is listening.
I can say it, and when I was audited, they actually wound up giving me an extra check for $700. One thing I know that tax code like the back of my hand. So yeah, so I haven't paid taxes since 1991. Now I'm about to pay some taxes, only because I know what I want to do in the next 2 years. But anyway, the thing about it, that would be like the American government saying, "Well, I don't have to protect you because you haven't paid taxes." You understand what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
I don't have to, but if you want my protection, oh, even better. You know what? Negate what I just said. A better situation would be for all the immigrants who haven't become American citizens yet. It would be like the American government saying, hey, even though everybody pays taxes and everybody taxes goes in goes into part of the military budget. But for you immigrants who are not American citizens yet, we're going to charge you an extra tax to put into the military industrial complex. That's not right. That's not,
I mean,
I wouldn't call that
look,
right.
if they fail, it's like if the cops or the fire department fails to like put out a fire or take care of you, right?
Mhm.
Can you go to your local PD and ask them back for your money?
No,
Because in this system, you would be able to do that because they failed on their obligations, right? You can get your money back.
this is true. I understand what you're saying, but why should a people living under your rule have to pay extra taxes for what everybody else is already getting as well in their regular taxes? You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like you're gonna get fire department is supposed to come to anybody's house who's on fire, whether they are paying taxes or not, because they live in the city that they live in. It shouldn't be that, oh, because you are a foreigner, you got to pay more taxes for the same service. That's that's extortion. You're
I mean, like
extorting.
you can make it clear that you don't want to pay this tax, and then like they'll just wash their hands off of you and say, okay, fine, don't call us if anything happens.
No, according to that, well, y'all call them surahs, right?
Yes, or it's like, oh,
According to
this
that
is just a
surah,
chapter.
according to that chapter, if you live with us, you got to pay this tax. There's no option to opt out. You have to pay this extra tax.
But then
To
if
live
somebody's
where you're from.
neglectful, right, then you have a case, right? You can get your money back.
But you shouldn't have to pay the tax, period. That's extortion. Like sometimes I think health insurance is extortion,
Yeah.
right? Or car insurance is extortion. If I go a whole year without an accident, what did I just pay that money for? So to me, it's extortion. But so you live in a Islamic country. Everything's peaceful. You live your whole life. No bandits, no foreign enemies attack. So you just paid this tax, extra tax, for the same protection that everybody else got, and no one ever attacked you. So
Ideally, that's because, the protector, the Sultan, was doing his job right.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why both of you are neglecting the fact that we just read it, and the first stanza clearly states, "Fight them." I don't know why both of you are avoiding. Yo, just read it again.
Yeah.
Fight them. Isn't
oh
that what
yeah,
it says?
I was gonna get to that, man. Hold on. I'm gonna hit the tax part because I love taxes. Okay, but I'm with you. I am with you, African Happy. Uh,
Cool.
but before I get there, shit, you made me forget what I was gonna say. You're paying this tax. There. Oh,
Sorry, sorry.
so right, no,
No, no,
I know
no.
what I was gonna say before I got there. So the only way that you can get out of this tax, and this is where the fight then is going to come into play with what I'm about to say. The only way to get out of this tax is if you then convert over to Islam, and then you get out of having to pay this tax, and so you get to save some of your money.
No, you get another tax, just like, you get another tax.
No,
Now
you
you have
don't.
to pay zakat.
No, you're already paying Sadat. So,
Yeah. No, because there's two taxes. There's jizya for non-Muslims, and then there's zakat for Muslims.
no, it's everybody has to pay. Ooh, that was probably the VA. I have to call them that. Everybody is supposed to pay the zakat. That's what all
No,
people living under Islamic rule. The people
no,
who
no.
are
Zakat is specifically for Muslims, right? And its equivalent for non-Muslims is the jizya. Right? Think about them like two tax brackets, right? Separate from each other.
that's not how it's broken down. And then the only way you don't have to pay the extra tax is if you become Muslim. And like my man said, that could be the reason why it says fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last day. So one of the ways that I'm going to force you into believing in Allah is to overtax you. until you're willingly submitting and fully humbled. See, that's why it says until they pay the tax and then willingly submitted and fully humbled. So they have to pay this tax until they convert over to Allah, which is another form of forced indoctrination or fighting with them, other than with the sword to their neck and forcing them to convert over to Islam. Because many people during the trans-Saharan slave trade and just during the Arab conquest was forced into Islam by sword. So I don't see that. And to go back to the thing, that's not righteousness when you're forcing people through taxation or through violence to become part of a religion.
I mean, like the way I see it, right, is like people have obligations, right? And for the same reason the IRS hunts people down, even put Al Capone in jail, right? Is like you want to incentivize people to do good things, whether that's paying like, for like protection, paying for like, arms, right? You want that to happen, right? So society can like work together.
So why fight them though? Why fight them? Why fight them though?
It's a good
I mean,
point.
it's like if they don't pay, like society's gonna
No, no,
fall
no. It
apart.
does not say if they don't pay. It says fight them until they pay taxes, they humble, and they submit. So you are fighting them prior to that. We are three honest men here. So let us just swallow it as it is. It might be bitter for you, but let us just swallow it as it is. It says you should fight them. It says fight them prior to. So you fight them until they submit, they pay taxes, and they are humble. Let us just accept it.
I accept it. It's saying to fight them, and I know you're trying not to say it's not an extra tax, but it's an extra tax. So you're
Okay.
fighting them through
No,
taxation.
but something I will say that, right? Most Christians historically used to pay a tithe, right, to their churches, right?
Okay.
So if you add like the tithe and like jizya, it would look like that.
Yeah, can we
That's
focus on the fight?
and that doesn't make it
Fight them.
right. And
No, no, no.
same
Can we focus? No, no, no. Rami, no, no. Remy,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you short, man. Remy, focus on the fight them, which comes before the tax, before the humble, before the submission. Can you tell us about why you fighting them prior?
I mean, if they're fighting you, right? Because like we have in
They are
2,
fighting you.
yeah, in chapter
It
2
says
verse
fight
9
them.
190, right?
Come again?
Like chapter 2 verse 191, like you'll see that it says that, hey, you fight people who are fighting you, right?
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that it might say that or it says that. But here we are clearly told, fight them. It's
why
not
did
even saying fight back. It's not saying fight back until this and that. It clearly says fight them, which is very clear.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
that's
you shouldn't be
190 to 191, right?
you should this is one of the things I always tell to Christians, referencing something else that does not have anything to do with what it's actually saying in this one part. Like we shouldn't have to go somewhere else to try to explain what 929 says. Right? 929 should be able to stand on his own, right?
I
If
mean,
it's the
everything
word of
needs
Allah.
context. Like, look, I'll say this: everything needs context. Right? You can't just pick one word, one verse, whatever, and then like just
Yeah,
assume.
but still, I'm willing to grant you. that that verse relates with this. But still, yeah, it's very clear. Fight them. It does not say fight them back. You
But then
understand? It's loud
yeah,
and clear.
yeah, of course. But then look, if we're told to fight, right, we have to look at the other context of what else we've been told, like, constitutes fighting, right? You can only fight those who are fighting you, who wage war against you. But we're also told not to exceed limits.
It's difficult when a believer puts on the cognitive dissonance suit. It's very difficult. But the
Okay,
facts remain.
would you prefer us to be like Buddhists and say or renounce like fighting altogether? Right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, no, no. But still, that is not my
So even
case.
renounce self-defense. Is that what you'd ideally want for
Well,
us?
I know, but self defense is one thing. But as I'm going through the chapter 9 of it
Mhm.
and some context, people like to take context and say, "Oh, it's chapter 9," and then I'm gonna run over to chapter 100.
True.
No, chapter 9 provides all the context that you need for the verse that it is being said in verse 29. All right,
Mhm.
and the context in verse 29 has nothing to do with someone attacking you, right?
Yeah,
It
because like in the previous, like in the next verse after that, it's about like polytheists, and then like it's also about like some people are claiming Ezra is the son of God, right?
Yeah, so you said if people are attacking you, you should fight them. It's
Hmm.
this is so the verse above it. O believers, indeed the polytheists are spiritually impure, so they should
Hmm.
not approach the sacred mosque after this year. If you fear poverty, Allah will enrich you out of his bounty. If he wills. Surely Allah is all knowing, all wise. Fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last days. So that has doesn't say if these polytheistic people are attacking you, fight them in self defense. This is saying they're polytheists. They're impure. They shouldn't approach the mosque. So fight these people if they don't
But
believe in Allah and the
the
last day.
context of when this was revealed was that the polytheist had previously broken like a treaty. Like if you read the next verse after that, right?
The
Like it
Jews
even
say
mentions it's the polytheists who actually upheld their end of the bargain. You can keep going, right?
it says the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, while the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. With such are their baseless assertions, only parroting the words of earlier disbelievers. May Allah condemn them. How can they be deluded from the truth?
Mhm.
They have taken their rabbis and monks, as well as the Messiah, son of Mary, as Lord besides Allah, even though they were commanded to worship none but one God. There is no God worthy of worship except Him. Glorified is He above what they associate with Him. This doesn't say anything about some treaties being broken or
No,
them.
no, no, you have to go back to like the polytheists and stuff like that because the
So
whole
basically,
chapter.
the whole
This
chapter
no,
is
this is just
saying
a
that
mental. This is just a mental gymnast. It's just a mental gymnast. We are being thrown all over the place.
No, no,
The,
I'm
the,
literally
the real
going
deal.
with the
No,
same.
no, no.
You, you're the
Give me
one
a
who brought
moment
up the
here.
verse. Happy,
No,
happy.
no.
You're the one who brought up the verse, but you refuse to read
Of
the
course,
entire
yes,
thing.
and I still stick to it. It clearly states, and I'm repeating myself for almost the third time, that it clearly states, fight them. Yeah, and from the prior verse, when you're coming down, you find that before you fight these guys have been called spiritually impure prior to you being asked to fight them. So there is a prompt before that, which says these guys are spiritually impure. Then you fight them until they submit, until they are humble, until they pay taxes. I think it's the most clear thing I've come across today. But for you, you need to put on your cognitive dissonance suit and start arguing against it. But still,
No,
allow
no,
me.
like you are cherry picking. Like you cherry
No,
picked
of
this
course not.
verse, right?
No, it
But
clearly
then
says
you won't
fight
allow
them.
me to defend myself. You won't allow me to defend my points, right? Because if you start Ataba, like chapter 9 from the top, right? It says that, okay, these people who broke treaties with you, like all bets are off. You were discharged from them, right? And then it says, like, these people can travel freely except on the sacred months. Right? And then, like, it goes and says, if these polytheists have honored every term of their treaty and have not supported the enemy against you, honor your treaty with them, right? Because Allah loves those who are mindful of Him. Right? Because, within our system, right, you can make a treaty with somebody, even if you don't believe the same thing as them.
Okay, and I see the parts that you're talking about that some of them broke the treaty, but for those who didn't break the treaty or support your enemies, that you are to allow them to safe passage during the sacred month, and then but once the sacred month has passed, then you're kill the polytheists who have violated your treaties, wherever you find them, capture them, besiege them, and lie in wait on them in every way. But if they repent, perform prayers, and pay alms, taxes, then set them free indeed. All right. So Allah is forgiving and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And any one of the polytheists ask for protection, grant them. All right. And I see how you're putting the emphasis on the treaties and those
Yeah.
who, and those who have broken the treaty, but 29 has nothing to do with that, with the breaking of the treaties, because this is telling them how to live when people live in your kingdom. They're living in your kingdom. They're not breaking the treaties, because obviously you're supposed to kill the ones who broke the treaties. So by the time we get to 29, these ain't treaty people. These ain't people who are in violation of the treaties. These are just those who live in your kingdom, and you are to fight them who don't believe.
Yeah,
But
because like it is because the polytheists are the ones who don't believe in Allah and the last day, right?
yeah, the polytheists,
Because the entire chapter prior to this has just been talking about polytheists. After it starts talking about like people who claim Ezra is this or that.
Mhm. But you are still, and then I still contend that the other way that you're fighting them is to overtax them.
So basically, you're calling it extortion, right?
Yeah, to extort them for a service that they naturally are gaining because they're paying both the first tax anyway, and then they got to pay this extra tax in order to have, because they're not Muslim. Because if they were Muslim, they would pay the same tax as the Muslim pay only. That's extortion. That's so at the very beginning I was talking about, I asked you what righteousness is, and that is extortion is not righteousness.
But then I'm saying it in terms of like incentivizing, doing the right thing, whether it's like protecting your neighborhood, protecting the state,
That's not
protecting people.
you're gliding right by it. You're not incentivizing them, you're punishing them. That is not in you're not in,
If the state fails, or
no,
if like, the Sultan
the
fails.
you're incentivizing them by saying that this is the I don't know the right word to use with incentivizing here, but you're basically saying, so I'm gonna go the long way around. You're basically saying that, hey, you got to pay the regular tax and you got to pay this extra tax, but I'm going to incentivize you to not have to pay the extra tax if you convert over to Islam. That's the incentive, is not to gain the services, but to not pay as much in taxes. But that's only if you convert to Islam. Then,
I,
so you're not being
I,
incentivized to
Muslims
do
themselves have different obligations, right?
what?
Muslims have different obligations, like, whether it's like the specific zakat tax, whether it's like there's no ifs and or buts if you have to defend other Muslims, right? Like, let's say, for example, like joining the army, the military, the defense, whatever thing you have, right? All Muslim men especially are obligated to join, right? If
Okay.
you're not Muslim, you don't have to.
Okay. So
Right?
that has nothing to do with I'm going to tax you extra unless you convert over to Islam.
Remy, let me just ask you a honest question.
Yeah.
Would you logically admit that this criteria of handling people convinced people into joining Islam?
I'm sure, for some people, just like the taxes were enough to convince them.
So if this is the case, don't you think that people are being manipulated here?
Manipulated in what sense?
In any sense, you take it as you wish, but don't you think that people are being manipulated into joining Islam by using this criteria?
This is an economic manipulation. Do you think that they're being economically manipulated to join Islam?
And you have to understand. You have to
I think
understand.
they're being incentivized, yes, but manipulated, no, because from my point of view, right, I perceive Islam to be the truth. So if I'm convincing you to believe something that's already true, it's not manipulation. There's no deceit, right?
There's,
So you
That's
get
my
it. It's true.
perspective.
It's true to you. It's true to
Yeah,
you. It's not true to me. So whatever you're doing towards me, yeah, is still manipulation. It doesn't matter what your view on it is.
yeah, because it's not true to me. So you're
Yeah.
manipulating me to believe in what you believe through economics. That's manipulation, not incentivizing. So let me give you an example of what incentivizing and how I have avoided paying taxes for the majority of my adult life. The
hmm
federal government incentivizes you to be able to have better tax breaks if you start a business.
yeah,
So I'm being incentivized to start a business, which is a benefit to the overall economy of America by providing jobs, services, and things of that nature. And my incentive is that I get bigger and better tax breaks than the regular employee.
sure.
In this case, the extra taxes is to manipulate me into joining and changing my belief system in order to pay less taxes for the same services that I was getting anyway. That's manipulation, not incentivization.
Yeah,
Incentivization.
and just and
But
just
would you
allow
say that
me.
the government is manipulating you to start a business?
No, I'm not being because I don't have to.
You don't have to convert, right? But you'll have to pay a tax one way or another,
You'll have to
right?
pay an
Even
extra tax.
even in North Africa, right, in Egypt, there's millions of Christians, right, and they've existed like that for centuries, right? There's Zoroastrians in Iran, there's Hindus in India. Despite all these places having, Muslim rulers one way, like in the past,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
if anything, right, if what you're saying is true, right, a Muslim ruler is disincentivized to convert like most people.
So I see how in your thought process you want to see it as a good thing to force people or trick people into believing in Islam, right?
Mhm.
But it's not an incentive. To the person that it's being done to, it's manipulation.
Mhm.
It's not incentivizing, right? So if I was living in Egypt and they told me that I have to pay this extra tax every year because I'm not Muslim, not because then they to me they're trying to manipulate me. I'm not incentivized. I'm manipulated into doing
Yeah,
that.
and also just to chime in there, you have to understand that the reason why these Christians still exist in Egypt is not because Islam has allowed them. It's because of secularism. It's because
Wait,
of
wait.
the
So
power.
500 years ago, Egypt was secular.
No, I'm not saying that Egypt was secular by then. I'm just saying part
Then
of
how did the
that.
Christians exist 500 years ago? How did they exist 1,000
So
years?
do you accept? No, do you accept that today this is happening because of secularism? Before we move back to 500 years ago.
Yes, the current Egyptian
Yeah,
government
yeah,
is
yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
secular.
So that was my first case, and moving back, you equally have to understand that Christians were also pushing back. Christianity was also growing outside of Egypt, and if at all Islam was to touch, yeah, Christianity in Egypt, Christians from outwards of Egypt would also assemble and come against Islam in Egypt. So you have to understand
Yeah, like
that
look,
it
the
was no,
Crusaders ignored Egypt, right? That wasn't their goal. Their goal
Yeah,
was the
it
Holy
was
Land.
because because Muslims prior to that also understood that the Crusaders are available, so they were like, no, we are not going to touch these guys. So that is beside the point. What I
But the
want to also
Crusaders lost. Like the vast majority of people in the Holy Land are not Christian, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
failed. They failed.
No. You have to
Go
understand that
back and forth.
after that period of time, a lot of other factors were involved in order to, change this particular situation. But still, I want to point out something new, but still correlated to this. You join Islam, yeah, via very different ways. This one included,
Hmm.
but you're not allowed out of Islam. So you're put inside this loop, and we have several verses. My dear brother, I'll give you some of them where you are not allowed to exit Islam. So there's only an entry, yeah. There's no exit, and if you want to exit, the repercussions are there. You're supposed to be even unalived. Some of them
Yeah,
prescribe other
that's
different
sourced
things.
from the hadiths, yes.
No,
Right.
no, of
But
course not. It's sourced from the Quran itself. An-Nisa, I think that's An-Nisa verse 88 to 89. Just search that, Mister. Just search that, please. Deconstructing. Just search that for me. An-Nisa 88, 89. Search that for me. An-Nisa 88, 89. So you're put into a loop. Yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody's telling you, yeah, you can join if you want, and we are going to give you a leeway to this particular enforcement. And then when you're in, you're not allowed out.
Mhm.
So it is An-Nisa. I think that should be A-N, then Nissa. An-Nisa, then that is verses 88 to 89. So if you have them, please, you can just read before we get marinated by cognitive dissonance. You can just read that fast.
Mhm.
You have it?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah. An-Nisa, that should be A-N dash Nissa. That is 88 and 89.
Chapter 4, verse 88, 89. Right.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, if An-Nisa is chapter 4. Yeah. Just read it for us, yeah, so that we can be clear here. We have already understood, regardless of what he is trying to defend here, we've already understood that people are being manipulated into Islam. You understand? But there is no exit. You understand here? There is no exit. You're taken in, but you cannot come out. An-Nisa 88, 89.
Uh-huh.
You have it?
I think so. Um, why are wait a minute. Why are you believers divided into two young groups regarding the hypocrites, while Allah allows them to regress to disbelief because of their misdeeds? Do you wish to guide those left by Allah to stray? And whoever Allah leaves to stray, you will never find for them a way. They wish you would disbelieve as they have disbelieved, so you may be alike. So do not take them as allies unless they immigrate in the cause of Allah. But if they turn away, then seize them and kill them wherever you find them, and do not take any of them as allies or helpers.
Mhm. And then you could read the next verse too, right?
Oh shit! Wait.
Like 490.
Yeah, I know it's got to like this scroll went too far. Except those who are allies of all of a people who are bound within a treaty, or those wholeheartedly opposed to fighting either you or their own people. If Allah has willed, he would have empowered them to fight you. So if they refrain from fighting you and offer you peace, then Allah does not permit you to harm them.
Exactly. You see, I knew what you were doing, Happy, right? You were gonna like clip it out of context and say that,
So basically saying that if those who goes away from Islam and but they don't want to fight you, then don't kill them. But
yeah.
for those who want to fight you, kill them. That's
Yeah,
what you're
because like
saying.
that will turn into a self-defense thing. If somebody comes in, becomes a spy, you know, you're chilling with us, we're eating with us, and then you leave the camp to go back, to the enemy camp, right? You're now a threat, right? Because the first thing is also about hypocrites, right? People who say one thing and then do another thing. So this is more about like people who come into the fold, right? Who pretend to be with us and then they turn against us, right? But if
Understood.
this person wholeheartedly like hasn't, they have nothing, they're not gonna fight us. Like we have no beef with them.
I see. So I can see what both you guys are saying in a sense,
Hmm.
because it does specify those who are in a treaty with you, or those who are wholeheartedly opposed to fighting either you or their own people.
Hmm.
That for those people you don't kill. But it still turns a little sour with the idea that um, those who have those who have become to come to disbelieving,
Hmm.
that if they turn away, then seize them and kill them wherever you find them, and do not take any of them as allies or helpers.
Hmm.
So it's like a person turns away. I don't want to believe anymore, and I don't want to be your ally or your helper. So then you're to kill them. But those who want to be your allies or helpers, then you don't kill them.
Or who are completely opposed to fighting you, say, hey, I wanna leave, no hard feelings, right? I'm not gonna do anything against you guys.
Yeah, but this can be taken like okay. So if I was, let's say I was living in Saudi Arabia and I was running a Quran deconstruction channel, right? Deconstructing Islam,
Hmm.
right? I'm not an ally or a helper to Islam at that point because I'm teaching people to walk away from Islam.
Hmm.
I'm not physically attacking anyone. I don't have a treaty, but because it can be seen as me not being an ally, then
Yeah,
they
then
can.
that's why you should clarify. You could say, hey, look, I have no hard
Yeah.
feelings, right? My goal isn't to harm, Muslims and the Muslim community. It's just to talk to people, right?
Yeah. So basically, if I walk away from Islam, I need to sit down and shut up and just live my life. But if I want to help other people walk away from Islam, then Muslims can come and kill me.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I think that's like a very like uncharitable interpretation, but
Well, I mean, if we put it into, so all these books mature or change as the civilizations change. So, but if basically, but even in the old back in the day, if I was someone who didn't physically fight, but if I was standing on a corner on a pedestal saying that Islam is wrong, then they can kill me. So that motif fits no matter what. That I can be non-violent, but violence can be acted upon me because I'm not an ally to Islam just through my words. So it's not just putting it into today's terms or looking at it from our point of view today, but at any time frame. If I spoke against Allah, then I'm not an ally. I'm not a helper.
no, but look, it's about making yourself clear. Like, what are your intentions? Are your intentions to harm like the Muslim community or to like, leave them alone? Because let's say, for example, Christians say things, right? Even street preachers and so on and so forth, right? They say things which are completely against what we believe, right? Such as the Trinity. Right?
Hmm.
And most of the time, nothing happens, right?
Okay. Wait a minute. Say that one more time.
Yeah.
Say that one
There's
more time.
like there's literally street preachers in Nigeria, there's street preachers in
Uh-huh.
Egypt, anywhere, right? Who are preaching things which contradict our beliefs, right? They're saying, "Ah, the end times are coming. You guys need to repent." Right? But we have to leave them alone because at least by their words, they're not harming us directly.
Okay, in secular countries, you would be correct. But do you know that if I went to Saudi Arabia and I tried to evangelize, that is imprisonment and death. If I went
Yeah,
to,
like,
if I
but
went to Dubai,
that's a specific thing to like Saudi Arabia,
but
right?
if I, no,
The
that's not
king.
just Saudi Arabia. If I went to Dubai, it is illegal to give out Bibles or evangelize. I would be put to death, right? So, and in Bahrain, same thing. In Qatar, same thing.
But
I
that's
don't know.
specific to the Gulf countries, right? Those are laws that they've added,
In
right? That
Iran.
like,
But it's those, but that's just like what I was originally talking about, which was slavery. That's just like um, the slavery thing. Uh,
mhm,
there, those laws are added based on what the Quran says.
mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So if I was the king of Saudi Arabia and I'm reading that surah, that chapter,
Mhm.
then I will say that, oh, a person who evangelizes Christianity is doing harm to the Muslim community, so kill that bastard. Because that's what this,
And you'll get judged for that, right? If you kill a person like this and you do such like an evil act, right? God will like you know take you down on Judgment Day.
but according
At least that's
to,
what we believe, right?
but
If
see,
you
that's what
contravene,
you believe. Because there are millions of people in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, Iran who disagree with you.
of course they disagree with me, right? But then the
Right.
vast majority of Muslims don't live there, right? They live in Indonesia, they live in Nigeria, they live in Turkey, right?
They so but and that's the thing. You're living in Turkey, Nigeria, more secular countries
Hmm.
that are making laws not solely based on their book, not
Sure.
solely based on the Quran. It's based on societal norms.
Hmm.
You when you have these theocracies, and even in Dubai, is the United Arab Emirates is more liberal than Saudi Arabia, so they don't hold true to every law, everything based on the Quran either themselves. So that's what makes this all of this such. How can you claim it to be the word of God when you can look through history and you can look country for country, group for group, and the same laws, the same writings are translated to have different meanings depending upon what culture you live in and what time era you live in.
Of course.
So just like the Bible supported the transatlantic slave trade, what Happy is saying, the Quran supports Peaceful Storm, who is somebody on YouTube. She's a Christian. She believes in the Bible, the Christian Bible. Her
Hmm.
going to Saudi Arabia, and especially as a woman, she would be stoned for preaching the gospel according to her beliefs because it's being deemed as being harmful. Now she can go to Turkey and she might get yells and boos, but she ain't gonna get stoned. The government is not gonna kill her.
Yeah.
So with different translations of the same thing, different thought processes of the same thing, but this God is supposed to be one God, all unifying, but the message is corrupted or changed or thought of different ways depending upon the culture and the people.
Of course, right? And that's a real thing, right? That different people have different interpretations. There are objectively bad interpretations, right, of
Well, you
like
say that.
scripture.
I guarantee if you were born and raised in Saudi Arabia, you would not think you would think that you would think that you now are wrong. That your
No, no, no,
interpretation.
like the vast majority of people in Saudi Arabia aren't even like the same sect as the royal family. But then the royal family doesn't. It's not a democracy,
No, it's not.
right? So like people can't voice their opinions. So there's like a different sect called Shia in Saudi Arabia, right? But then it's not like they can voice like their opinions and say, oh, we would like to interpret this verse like that.
You saying they can't?
They can't.
Right. Oh, but that's and do you understand the point? You are the type of Muslim that you are based on I don't know where you're from, but based on where you're
I'm
from.
from Kenya. It's in East Africa. I think Happy's also from Kenya.
Oh damn, both of y'all in Kenya or from Kenya at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Kenyans have a different version of Islam that they practice than the people in Saudi Arabia, and it's all based on the country that you're in and the history of your country. So how can you trust how can you trust what is the true word of your God if it's reliant on where you were born, who you was
I mean, it's
exposed
not necessarily where you're born, but like, the
to?
Quran addresses this, that people will have to use their reasoning, their akal, right, to like understand the word of God, right?
But they
So,
all have different reasonings. They still come up
of
with
course,
different concepts. And those concepts are based on where you are growing up, where your influences are in your culture.
that's true. Yeah.
You know? So how can you then solidly, other than just emotions, say that you have the right translation, the right understanding, when someone else has a completely different one based on culture?
The truth is, like, I don't know, right? But I'm trying my best and I have faith.
That is, you know what? That is one of the answers
Honest.
that I can hardly ever get out of a Christian is to
Yeah,
say, I
that's what.
am doing my best.
Yeah, that's
I,
very
I
correct.
I can try my best and like with the articles of faith that I have, and
Hmm. And you realize that your articles of faith is based on the culture that did you grow up in Kenya?
yeah, I grew up in Kenya, right?
So your set of morality that you're overlaying the Quran with is really based on you growing up in Kenya, not so much what the Quran says.
I mean, both two things can be true at the same time, right? Like I can follow what the Quran says, and then I'm informed by the people, our teachers, our schools of thought here, right? We even have Muslim jurists. That's part of our legal system in Kenya, right?
Hmm. No, and those two things are true, but the other aspect of that truth is that your culture has more influence than the Quran itself because you're curving the Quran to fit the culture.
I mean, the Quran is more of like an instruction of like, especially what we ought to do, right? If it tells me to like love my mom, right? My culture could be like, your mom's not that important, right? But then the Quran, like the word of God would come and like add, it's like medicine, right?
In some instances, I would agree with you on that one.
No, no, but
That
no, but
there are going to
would you say that the absence of Islam or the absence of the Quran would bring about somebody opposite to what the Quran makes you become?
Yes and no, right?
How is it even a no?
Because like a person could be righteous, right? And try their best without like revelation directly. Right? That's a possible thing. Some people are led astray with like by people who claim to be Muslim,
So
and then
by you accepting that, you're making Islam and the Quran independent of morality.
like yeah, like even bad
Yeah,
people
yeah,
can do
yeah.
good
No,
things,
just
right?
agree with me.
I look, I can acknowledge that a Hindu can
Yeah.
do good things, right?
yeah.
Can do morally sound things. Yeah.
Yeah, so it means that our morality is independent of whatever the Quran says or whatever Islam says. So you cannot make it as if it's the medicine that helps you become who you are. No, the society would have done that even in the absence of your Quran.
Yeah, but this is like the distilled medicine, right? Because you can have like willow bark, it's from a tree, you can get, right? And you can have like Advil, right? Advil is like the prescription, like, medicine. But then willow bark would also work. There is a better way, there is like a, straighter path, as we call it.
So would you say that the difference you're pointing out right now makes Hindus less moral than you?
It depends, right? Because like
Well, it
they
doesn't
can do
depend.
good
Of course
things.
not. No, the correct answer is of course not. So there's no relevance. There's no relevance of your Quran and Islam to a Hindu person.
I mean, the relevance is that, let's say, like the Hindus have a claim that, there's multiple gods, right? And then in the Quran, it rectifies that and says there's one,
No,
Well,
no, but we're seeing morality here.
actually,
right?
Hinduism teaches that there is one God. It is
Yeah, but then
European,
with different faces, different bodies, and so on and so forth, right?
which are just aspects of the one God. It is European understanding of Hinduism that people believe that they have multiple gods, but they don't have multiple gods.
Anyway, like from
But
our
it,
perspective too, right, as an Abrahamic faith, it happens to just look like, like
Yeah,
polytheism.
I mean,
just
Abrahamic faith is
say
probably,
Hmm.
the Abrahamic says that other gods exist. Shamash exists. All these other gods exist as well. So
Yeah, but
they,
only one is worth worshiping, right?
but the existence of the other gods would incite polytheism. You may not worship those gods, but there is the belief in those gods' existence, which is polytheism. Whether you worship the other gods or not has nothing to do with polytheism.
Yeah.
The belief that
And
they
that's also why we define ourselves as strict monotheists, right? Because people can have a different concept, right? Somebody can say that, okay, Thor exists, right? But that exists as a concept, right? But if you're talking about the creator of the universe, it's only one. That's our belief. That's our hard belief.
but to
yeah,
go
yeah. The
back
same thing can be said about Islam.
but to
We
go
can
back
say
to
the same thing about it.
now hold on, let's go because we already way off my original subject. So let's not keep going off. But to go back to what Happy Africa was saying though is regardless of the theism, the poly or mono, a Hindu person and a Muslim, you're saying that in your understanding, your description that you was giving, your example, that Hindu is less moral than an Islamic person, and that's a possibility. But that possibility is not based on religion. That possibility is based on the culture that they grow up in, the family they grew up in.
No, like, because like I can distinguish between moral actions, right? Like, let's say, for example, helping somebody when they're starving, right? That is a moral action regardless of whoever does it, right? But then if you're making like spiritual claims, right? Because to us as Muslims, right, like it is immoral and like anti-reality to say, that there is multiple gods, right? Or to make idols or to make images,
I'm
right?
not understanding you.
We see that as immoral.
So first you're telling us, no. First you're telling us that somebody can help somebody who is in need. You understand?
Yeah.
That's the first. Yeah, and there I'm with you. But where are we fixing now the God idea, where now it becomes immoral to worship this God and moral to worship the other God?
No,
I'm
because
not catching up.
okay, you know how identity theft is a crime and it's immoral, right? Like if somebody took your picture and then started like messing with it and then claimed something else, that this person did X, he stole from me, right?
Honestly, I'm not getting you. Maybe if my brother is here, he's getting you, but still, the question belongs to if your morality comes from Islam and the Quran, yeah,
Yeah.
and according to you, this is the biggest source, yeah, not the community. And on the other hand, a Hindu person solemnly collect his morality from the
The
society.
Gita, yeah. The Gita, society, and so on.
Yeah. So what puts you in a better position than him?
Right?
Yeah, without
No, look, it's my belief, right? This is like, what I believe, that Islam has, the right formula in terms of like what God wants, right? And then some people have gone astray from that, but sometimes they also happen to do, good things.
yeah, if it's your belief, then it becomes difficult for me to take an opposing position here.
This is
Because
a faith, this is a matter of faith for me.
yeah. If it's your belief, then it does not make it right. It's just your belief. So I really can't tolerate that.
Look, if let's say, for example, you're one of those people who believes in materialism and like, like you've already subtracted spirituality and God from the thing, there's no way I can convince you, right? if you've already taken, God and like spirituality off the table.
But let me ask you a question though. And this is going to sound like I'm being a smart ass, but I'm really not trying to be a smart ass. Okay.
Sure.
Your foundation for your morality is the Quran, but that foundation is based on your belief, right?
Hmm.
So as you stated earlier, or was getting into the statement of, if a person have idols or worships another God, then based on your belief, that person is committing an immoral act.
Yeah, it's like
Belief,
fraud.
but belief within itself is not based on facts. Which, when you earlier said that y'all followed like the Ten Commandments, which one is to not bear false witness?
Hmm.
Your belief that they are worshiping false idols is not based on facts. It's based purely on belief because you cannot prove the existence of your God nor the existence of their God or gods.
Hmm.
So is that not bearing false witness because you're basing it on something that cannot be proven?
Hmm. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we
That's
can only operate from what we
right
know
there.
to be
Just a moment
true,
there. That's why I
right?
think if you introduce your belief card, then it becomes difficult for us to engage. It remains your belief and it's not factual.
Wait, Happy. He said you start out saying something about being true. Say
Yeah, like, let's say, for example, I hold one truth to be self-evident, right? Like, I look up into the sky and then for some reason I say, okay, the sky is actually brown, right? That is a self-evident truth to me, right? But then that is true because I'm colorblind, for example, right?
okay,
So
but see,
I
you
to me
have
that's the truth of my eyes.
that is the truth of your eyes because you have evidence that would back up that truth.
Hmm.
But in this instance, there is no evidence to back up your truth. It is only a
Hmm.
truth to you based on beliefs, which has no facts.
Hmm. And
So
I
you can't
yeah.
claim. So making the claim that someone else is less moral because they worship a different deity
Hmm.
based solely on your truth, your belief rather,
Yeah.
that is false witnessing towards that person because you cannot demonstrate with any type of evidence your claim.
Sure. And also, right, I if I'm wrong, right, I'll find out in the end, right? Or not, right?
I mean, that is the wager. It's not
Yeah,
Pascal.
that's a wager we're taking.
Yeah. And which is an interesting wager because Pascal's wager only works if you're doing it against someone who doesn't believe any gods exist. But if you're
I mean, some
wrong,
people have expanded that and said, like, there's like 1,000 gods or so on and so forth, right?
yeah. So if you're wrong, but the Buddhist is right, or the Hindu is right, or the Christian is right, or the Jew is right, or the Wiccan is right, or the, you know what I'm saying, on and on and on, then
Hmm.
you lose.
Yeah, yeah, and then I'll be in trouble. But then I hope, right, that God, whoever like is merciful, right? I don't claim to know God's mind or nature, right? But it is my earnest hope that He's merciful.
Yeah. That's the best answer that you could give. That if you're wrong, you just hope that whoever it is can understand. Hey, man, I grew up in this environment. This is what my parents taught me, or this is what my culture taught me. So I did good shit most of my life, and they give
Yeah,
you a pass.
that's all I can do. All I can do is hope, pray, and then do the right thing. Like, you know,
Don't you think that even secular humanists like atheists are also within that bracket of explanation, where they're just doing good things, they're being moral, and if at all that any of these things exist somewhere else in an afterlife, they will also receive the same mercy.
yeah, like there are narrations and like theological discussions on this exact topic, right? In like all the Abrahamic faiths, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if God is truly merciful, like, and he's capable of anything, so there's, I can't tell you that he won't, like, also, like, be there, stand there for, like, the atheists, the non-believers, so on and so forth, right? But then I've taken it upon myself, right, to hold this belief, right, and, like, follow these, like, principles, to improve my life, right?
But let me ask you a question though. I'm gonna go back to a little bit here. So you admit that if you're wrong, you hope that the whoever whatever God, if there is a God that is there, that it is benevolent and enough to say that, hey, you didn't believe in the right version of me. But
Like,
do you
every
consider?
day, right?
But do
I,
you?
I call out to God and say, the most
Wait.
merciful, the most gracious, right? That's how I start every single prayer, right?
Okay.
So how Muslims start prayers,
I know my
right?
pausing sounds like I'm finished, but I'm not. But I understand what you're
That's okay.
saying. So, but here's the thing. But then, would it not be reasonable for that God, if it exists, that for that God who is different from the one you worship, still looks at you and say, but yet I understand you did good stuff in your life, but you thought the right version of me was a version that condoned slavery.
Hmm.
And you don't think that that would be a blemish? The fact that you would follow a God, a version of a God that condones slavery. Because we're going to get back to the subject matter. So do you not see that as being a blemish and you not saying
That could be yeah, it could be a blemish, right?
your own personal, guys, like, do you think slavery is okay?
No,
All right. So
slavery
how
is
can
wrong.
you follow any book that describes a God as condoning any version of slavery?
Right? Because I believe in a God who is merciful to human beings, even if they do wrong, right? Even if they do bad things, right? There will be, like, I don't know, okay, I'm going to be speaking out of the Quran here. Like, there will be people who are, like, did terrible things on earth, right? But then they gained repentance at some point, right? And then they will make it into God's grace, right? Into, like, paradise, right? So I believe that people can be redeemed even if they did bad things.
Okay. But if you continue your whole life believing in a God that condones slavery,
Mhm.
you never repented for that. You may not have performed the act yourself, but you supported a version of God that condones the slavery.
Mhm.
So if I'm that God, I'm gonna look at you a little side eyed. That I don't think I want you up here, in my realm, because you were willing to forego your own sense of morality, that spirit in you, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
your discernment. You would willing to just ignore the fact that this version of me condones slavery, and still stuck with it, even though you know it goes against your own sensibilities.
Mhm.
So maybe you're not the right type of person, because you might start some problems up in here. You,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we have to be of a mindset that if we are now more moral than the books that was written during a time frame where that morality was fine, then we need to leave that entire mindset behind, and move into a new mindset that says that, you know what, we don't need any God belief that says slavery is okay. You know, we need one that's we need a version, an identity of God that does not have slavery, that does not have the oppression of women, that does not have genocide. All that Old Testament God genociding people and stuff, we need to leave that alone. Sacrificing animals, just throw the whole thing away and
Mhm.
start over. So,
Yeah. But, with human beings, right? In terms of, like, you've said that we as a society have progressed, like, we've reached a point where, such is seen, like, as bad, or, it's completely morally reprehensible, right? To,
Hmm.
let's say, have slaves and so on. But then again, sometimes I also think like, what if in 100 years, right, people condemn me for eating meat because the vast majority of people then will become vegan. So the thing that, like, let's say faith will be condemned for is that how could you support a God who allowed people to slaughter animals and eat meat, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you have that. You had a guy that told you what you can eat and what you can't eat,
Hmm.
and people have based their religious life and their dietary life on that issue
Hmm.
alone. Uh,
Of
Now,
course. But
the
then,
thing
like,
about it is the thing to see the argument against that one would be there is a just in nature there is a cycle of life. There is something has to die in order for you to survive. So even though we may look at eating meat as something with a face and that produces babies, when you cut the vegetable off the root, off the branch, you're killing the vegetable. You're
mhm,
killing the apple when you cut it off the tree. So you're still ending life because does
yeah,
not the apple die once it falls off the tree?
yeah. And that's the point I wanted to bring up with this was that if, let's say, in 100 years, like the scope of morality changes to a point where like
I understand.
everybody's against eating meat, right?
Hmm.
Muslims could still exist, right? We don't have to eat meat, right? In fact, all vegetables are halal, right? They're kosher, right?
Yeah, but you killed them.
Yeah. So if we reach that point, right, the Muslims of that time period, maybe they'll say, you know what? These people lived according to their ways. They did a bad thing, right? But God is still merciful, right? That even these people who, ate meat, right, they have a chance at redemption, right? Because while us as Muslims, we don't have original sin as a doctrine, right? We accept that human beings have like the ability to sin, the ability to do wrong, right? And this is where God comes in to like give us mercy.
Well, that's why most morality is very subjective, and that's going to be a continuous thing for the eternity of man's existence. But there's a huge difference between eating meat and enslaving someone.
Mhm.
That's a very big difference. You're talking
Yeah,
about
and I
eating.
completely agree, right? Because
Eating
it
is a
says
thing,
that.
but slaving someone, that's not a necessity.
Mhm.
You got to eat something, right? Whether you choose to be vegetarian or not, you got to eat something. But you enslaving someone and taking away their agency, that right there is that's not a question of
Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
okay
I
at the
think
time.
I think the equivalence of that would be if you are engaging eating human meat, and if it were to be legalized in future, that would at least create an engagement. But if vegetables are also unalived, the same way plants are unalived, I don't think that is going to be associated with this. Plus, we're speaking about morality here. We're not speaking about survival. So morality and survival are two different things.
Right, and that's the
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, so that's not a
yeah,
good.
because as much as I disagree with them and I could find them completely abhorrent, right? Like if you go back in time and then you look at these kings, these rulers, right, and the justifications they told themselves why they're doing what they're doing, right? Whether it's like wiping out entire nations, enslaving them and so on and so forth. They see it as like an economic necessity that they need to do these things. Like, why is Ramesses doing these things? He's like, we need more workers to do this and that, right? We need to build this temple, or Osiris will do this to us,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, and have not people done those things in every religion?
Of course. Right.
I mean, that they when the Arab nation conquered North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula, it was the same thing. When they conquered Judea, it was the same thing. So there's no difference. They all have conquered and enslaved